So with Season 2 right around the corner, I've given in and decided to make some content about it. Content in which I will most likely be critical of it, at least sometimes, because I expect to have similar issues with Season 1's. I just much prefer the story in the manga. That's how I'll market it. I'll be that one grumpy manga purist complaining about everything, and people will come every week like, surely he has to like it this time. Of course, I'll try to keep it a bit more balanced, but to the point. I'm thinking of making videos for about every 2 episodes or so, depending on how much I have to say about them. I'll be comparing differences, showing manga panels, and I will keep it completely spoiler-free for the anime onlys. This video though, not spoiler-free. This will be my predictions, my worries, and my hopes for this season. Last thing, I'm not particularly nice here. With Vinland Saga, I don't care how good the adaptation is, I care about how good it could be, while at the same time having a point of comparison that I love. You know what this means when talking about anime adaptations. I'm getting into a lot of what to other people might seem like, I guess, nitpicking, so my rambling could be frustrating. And let's not delay. Season 2 is confirmed to have 24 episodes, just like Season 1. Anime cores apparently have to be 12 to 13 episodes long. I don't know why, don't ask me. How much it'll cover is not set in stone, but we've only seen Slave Arc, and honestly, I doubt they'll go into the Third Arc stuff. Even though you could definitely do up to Fetter 10 or Hunter and the Hunted and still have a good self-contained package. This is my biggest concern here, cause Farmland is about 6 volumes, and more specifically 1244 pages of story content, compared to Prologue's 1606. And we're getting the same amount of episodes. And I will say, Prologue had in total at least 2 full episodes of filler with a lot of smaller filler scenes. And Prologue in the anime was slow-paced, with some episodes adapting only 1 chapter. I think 24 episodes was 4 episodes too long, not taking filler into account. But the main problem, in my opinion, was how you segment the episodes, because Vinland has inconsistent chapter lengths from like 10 to 45. So you want to have an ideal ratio of like 80 pages per episode. Because it's harder to stop an episode in the middle of a chapter. That's usually gonna be the middle of a scene. That could be awkward. And this is going to continue being an obstacle with the Farmland chapters. The slow pacing hurts the overall pacing of the story. The stretch from the death of Thor to the episode 16-17 really feels like it should have been covered much faster. Cause all the slow episodes, plus the majority of the filler, plus restructured chapters 1 and 2 are in there. Everything together is a bad combo. The individual slow episodes aren't that noticeable though. I'm kind of impressed how good episode 8 feels despite being only 40 pages of content. But it really doesn't need to be that way. These episodes didn't have to be that long. Others have double or even almost triple the content adapted, and they also feel good. And it's not a case of some chapters overbloated with text either. And it absolutely affects how engaging the story is. This shit matters, even if you don't notice it. So I'm just curious at this point, how are you going to adapt Farmland only in 24 episodes? I would love to see Hunter and the Hunted in it. It would fix it, but not much hope. First of all, filler, yes. Judging from the trailers, we will at least have filler content for Snake, Einar, Canute, Thorfinn, maybe Arnheid. There will also be small filler add-ons to stretch chapters to episode length, like it will happen with the hopefully first episode in the expense of Einar here. But even if we assume every one of those characters gets a full episode of filler, which extreme, it's still behind the Prologue's adaptation in pacing speed. And no, just because Farmland is more atmospheric or slow-paced or whatever, which by the way I disagree with, I think it has perfect pacing. But no, you don't replicate that by slowing down its adaptation. You do it by adapting everything in the source material at a steady, reasonable pace. Because I've seen that argument before. Action and moments without dialogue occupy different ratios of the content between comics and animation. Imagery dictates the size, the page count of a chapter. Dialogue, text, is fitted into that. Whereas in animation, dialogue actually has more sway over the length of a scene. Like, very roughly speaking here, it's not always true as I say it here, but point is, the less dialogue in the text of the manga, the faster the anime adaptation is forced to adapt that same content. Not sure how it applies to Farmland versus the prologue, but if you were going to say, oh look at these parts with emphasis on the scenery and artwork, no, it doesn't help the pacing. Okay, pacing rant over. It really is the biggest question mark here. Filler. Usually, I'm not into filler if that filler doesn't fix a problem existing in the original. Like Canute in Season 1. Why didn't they make filler about him? Aside that, filler has difficulty being worthwhile for me. Being good doesn't mean worth adding. That's why I would still prefer it if episode 5 wasn't in the anime. For a story like Vinland, what's most important is being very rich in content. You want the plot, the themes, and the characters all to constantly progress together and feel natural and earned. Pulling the brakes to the entire thing to have 2 episodes of only character focus, which cannot be necessary, it's filler, and where it is not needed, is a poor trade-off. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. If you are a big Vinland fan, you might disagree, but you also might love everything about the series. I've already seen many of you making up your minds that the filler will make the story better and the season isn't even out yet. You just want more content with the characters you love. I can understand that. But that attitude isn't always conducive to efficient storytelling. I'm purely talking about min-maxing here. A lot of times, less is more. That being said, Canute is an exciting character. He's someone you like to see in Farmland. Some Canute content elaborating on the situation with Harald following the Book 5 climax is one of the better ways of padding out an episode. Good placement and backs up the build-up where you want it. I'm gonna be a bit of a hypocrite, but I'm a Snake fanboy. You'll love to see him. Nobody will complain about Snake backstory. It could be many things honestly. I hope it ties nicely into the story. The thing with this one is, where do you put it? Because you have hints of his past later into Farmland, but especially if it's a chunky flashback, you don't want it to be in the second half, because those volumes have some awesome momentum you really want to keep. You preferably should fit it somewhere earlier, although I have no idea where. Einar filler expanding his backstory, he's gonna stay, so a bit more focus there can't be a bad thing. You know they're gonna put this in chapter 60 to make a whole episode out of it. Do not slip in the obvious banana peel here and make Thorfinn relevant to his flashback. I swear to God, if Thorfinn was with the Vikings raiding Einar's village, I'm gonna lose my shit. Really silly to do that when you have healed later, just reusing the same trick over and over, making the whole healed reveal much weaker. Anyway, I saw some extra Einar scenes in the first chapter of Farmland in the second trailer. They might make that chapter an entire episode too, and have Thorfinn as a cliffhanger. Thorfinn filler? I want to be done with young Thorfinn. I do not want another Thorfinn pity fest that the anime insists on giving. I never liked them. Every single major filler in Season 1 is just that or has it in large quantities. Anyway, you know they are going to explain more in depth Thorfinn's change from prologue to beginning of Slave Arc. I don't think you need it. I think having the reader question how Thorfinn changed exactly and having them piece it together with retroactive characterization is more engaging and better storytelling. Also, by God, put it after the first chapter of Farmland, which should stay the beginning. That chapter relies on the suspense from the end of the prologue and on the reader wanting to know what happened to Thorfinn after that. And so the ending of the chapter carries a lot of impact. Without that, if we already know what happened to Thorfinn, it's just a plainly executed character introduction. Okay, so the filler here overall sounds much more promising than prologues. I'm just worried how much could it possibly be? How much will it affect the pacing? See, I'm worried about the pacing again. Anyway, I am fully expecting the animation to have dips in some episodes. It's the reality of the industry. There's not much point in discussing it. I'm more interested about the decisions being made. I hope Season 2 is more open to some stylization instead of its always show something exactly how it realistically looks approach. And I'd add in some of those background patterns that are sometimes used instead of backgrounds in the manga, and these can set and enforce the tone of a scene. They can be really effective, probably require less effort too. But I care far more about how characters are presented. There are a lot of unique styles of shading here and there that look quite striking, and the anime avoids them like the plague. This Askeladd silhouette, for example, pretty cool how it's used, and especially hard shadows. Use them more. Look how they can enhance the emotion of a scene, and I'm talking about this especially because of a certain new character in this arc. A lot of Gardar's presence relies on hard shadows. It makes him more intimidating, more mysterious and harder to read. Is he really a slave gone mad, or a wounded man in a desperate situation? He is consistently drawn like this. It's really part of his character. You can do this. It arguably makes your job easier because instead of avoiding detail, you can just imply it. It will not clash with the aesthetic of the anime, I promise you. You can do hard shadows and it'll work. Look at the second trailer. That looks great. Do it more. Hope for some good music. That first trailer theme I already like more than anything in Season 1. I feel the style of the music would work more in Season 2 than Prologue anyway. People seem to like the music in Season 1. I thought it was okay. I'm sorry. I just wasn't always digging it. Anyway, sorry if this sounded like mostly complaining, but you know I need to get this out of my system before the anime comes out. I need to numb myself so I don't give a shit. Only half-brain analysis so I don't bitch too much. Am I being too defensive? Did I make this video just so I have proof that I'm not just pulling complaints out of my ass as the episodes come out? Pray that you don't see a video from me when the first episode comes out. That means I have enough to say to make a video about just one episode. You don't want me to have a lot to say about a single episode. Nah, that won't happen. I trust them enough, okay? I do trust them enough. I'm also currently editing the next analysis. In the next month, it should be out. See you then.